Welcome in. It's time for the Sunday Smash, and this time around, we get to do it with a smile on our face. Well, we always have a smile on our face, but it's especially true after getting the season's first win. We knew it wouldn't come easy, Ira. Before we get going with all of you guys, I should note that you should like and subscribe here on Warchant TV. That way you can obviously be reminded or alerted to the fact that we're on with more programming. It'll give you the little signal that we're on the air live. So hit like and subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. Good to be with you on the Sunday Smash. First of all, cheers, Ira.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, buddy.
First of all, to a win, and also to the Orioles finishing with 52 wins this season.
A robust 52.
It's just we did. I wasn't sure they were going to get to 50, but they did. So
they did. Let me double check while we're doing this because I believe the Pirates got to 60 wins. I think they might have got to 60 wins. This isn't one-upmanship, Ira. It's just a matter of which of our baseball teams was sorrier.
I've had my eye on the Diamondbacks all season, and we both finished with 52 wins. So I'm
my
feeling
Buccos
good about
got
that.
to 61 wins, Ira. Woo! 61 and 101 for the Buccos. There you go. Yeah, buddy.
It's hollow ground when you get to 60 wins.
Hey, that was the over. The 57 was the over. We cruised past the over under on the win total. All right, so here we go, man. We get a win, and I'm just not going to be bitter about it, and I'm not going to talk about all the bad things that happened in this game on Saturday because there was a lot of them, but they won a damn game, and there was. I know you wrote in the 321 on warchant.com, Ira. I think you were right to point out some toughness there. I think the number one thing you take away from this game is that they are not in any way mailing in these performances. They're fighting like hell every week. They're just, obviously limited, very, very limited. And it's hard. It's always going to be uphill. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. When FSU wins games this year, and I think they'll win another couple, it's going to be like this. It's going to be arduous. Maybe not the UMass game, but any other win that they get will be like this. They're just not good enough to pull away from people or to sustain it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are frustrated about the way they approached that game yesterday with the screen passes, and not running the ball, the traditional running game. And I even tweeted, when Trayshawn Ward has a 65-yard run, like that's his second carry of the game. But he did have 5 at that point. He'd already caught like 5 screen passes. Mm-hmm. So that's basically that's them saying, we know we can't run the football at a team that wants to stop the run, which is what Syracuse does. And so this is the only way we could do it. And Jordan Travis getting the start and playing the whole game. I think also part of it was they knew they had to have a quarterback that can run. And so I know some people are still like angry that this team is what it is, but they're figuring out a way to move the football. And I don't know how mad you can get about that. This is where you are. And it's not going to change in the middle of the season.
Well, and I think in a weird way, Ira, when you see the amount of times that they're able to actually get a player isolated in some form of a one-on-one situation, and they don't do it a lot because it's hard to scheme those up, but they get one-on-one situations, and they never win them. I mean, they never win them. They don't win any one-on-one situation. And so
the backs do occasionally.
Well, and that's why they're throwing to the backs, because obviously with those guys with the ball in their hands are more dynamic than any receiver we have. And that's really that's a tough commentary on where the receivers are at. Those guys, have a long way to go. I think there's a couple of the younger receivers that I think in time will be able to contribute more. But you've got to have to get some speed in here, some separation. You've got to get some guys with some quicks that can make people miss. They don't ever make anybody miss. That's for sure. Those PFF grades aren't the gospel, but they do tell you some things. And I go through those things afterwards. And I'm amazed constantly, Ira, how few times they make people miss tackles. It's like virtually not at all ever.
Yeah. And, there were a couple. Jay-Sean was, I think both of them, Jay-Sean and Trayshawn, I think were both real close to breaking some big plays. If they could have just gotten one past one tackle, but those guys give you the best chance. And so,
by far.
And the coaching staff again, if you looked at the formations, a lot of times they had 3 running backs on the field together. They would have, one in twins formation on this side, and then another one over on the slot on the other side, and they would have or back in the backfield. They're trying to figure out ways to get those guys the ball, and had some success with it. But I think the offense. I mean, it is what it is. I just don't think it's going to be. You can't ask them to be a much more efficient than they were last night. Jordan Travis, obviously didn't throw for a lot of yards, but it was 22 out of 32. The one interception wasn't really his fault. So, that's about as efficient as you're going to get from Jordan Travis. And you don't have guys that can just make dynamic big plays all the time other than those backs. So, again, I just think it's going to be a struggle. Somebody, I think Gator Kirk brought up the point spread for this week, 18. That'll hurt your feelings. 18?
Yeah. I'll take the 18. I'll take Florida State plus 18. I don't think they're going to go win the game, but they'll do enough defensively. It's funny right now that the only thing that hurts them defensively, they give up big plays, and it's strange because they'll if you just want to do down by down, you might be confused to see that Florida State gave up the points and yards that they did because down for down they're good, they're pretty good, but then usually a team finds something and then just beats it to death because we're terrible at adjusting to it. And usually it's somewhere in the middle of the field. It's a crosser or it somehow isolates our linebackers in coverage. And whenever those guys are in coverage, they get beat. Just plain and simple, they get beat. They can't cover anybody. So these are things that don't involve coaching as much as they do talent. I am growing frustrated that those big plays are seemingly unavoidable. Like the busts that we see each week, these random busts seem to be unavoidable. And at some point, you got to look at that position group and the coach there and wonder, are we getting the most out of that group? Because it is a little frustrating.
I also think, there was a lot going on in that game yesterday. I didn't write about it. I think we might write about it tomorrow, but there was a lot going on in that secondary. I mean, Akeem Dent wasn't available. Apparently he was in uniform, but he wasn't available last week. He hasn't been out there much. So he's been dealing with something. So he wasn't in the lineup.
Travis Jay was hurt.
Renardo Green didn't play. Travis Jay was hurt. So you had Kevin Noles starting at cornerback, and there was one, and he got hurt and came back in. But one of those plays where one of those crossing routes, like he had the guy and then thought he was passing him off to somebody else, but then he looked like I think he thought it was his own, but it was really man, and he just let his guy go. I mean, so you got some, Jarquez McMillian was playing for the first time, really extended reps.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of mixing and matching in that secondary that, it may end up being where they go in the future. I mean, Brendan Gant didn't play much. That may be a coach's choice. And so maybe they're going in a different direction there. But I think that might be part of some of the breakdowns. But, I guess to your point that, it's not like that was the first time that's happened. So they have to clean that up, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating. But again, some of these, you differentiate when you go through the game when bad plays happen. And I always go back and look at it really closely again as best we can. We don't have the all 22s, and God, the ACC network is terrible. So, I mean, they seem to be even more focused in. You have no idea where the safeties are when you're watching from home. But as much as you can go back and watch the game, you really it's a lot of the things that go wrong turn out to be, and I don't like to blame players per se, but it's like if you're not good enough, you're not fast enough, you're not big enough or strong enough, then you're not. And in some cases, you just see a play where you're like, well, that guy just got beat. He's just not good enough.
How fast do you think Schrader is?
Not that fast, and he looked like he was running past all of our guys, man. And he's a big, strong kid, but yeah, I mean, that can't happen. It's crazy. And I will say, I almost lost my breath when I saw, I think it was Quayshawn Fuller.
Yeah.
Man, what are we doing here, dude? I mean, that's some common sense. What are we doing?
Yeah,
I don't want, I mean, I said I want to do this, but
that's what I'm saying. Like, it is a lack of awareness, I think. Just getting caught up in the moment, not thinking, and just kind of
Well, it just happened a moment ago. It's the same damn play. I mean, it's
I know. And that's that again, I mean, I know the reason. I mean, I'm sure a big part of the reason is they're trying to get a lot of those younger guys reps, not just for the future, but for later this season. But they're force feeding guys on the field. I mean, well, part of it is that shorthanded again up front. Dennis Briggs wasn't there, so you've got Josh Farmer playing a lot. That was the most he's ever played. They're and I guess you want to keep those ends fresh if you can, but it's like as soon as Jermaine Johnson comes off the field and like Fuller goes in.
Ooh.
A big play happens.
That's a significant drop off, my friend.
Right.
I mean, when that happens, that is a significant drop off. It's we've all said it over the course of the season. You could tell the offseason told you what this coaching staff thought they had, which wasn't much. That's why they went after so many transfers and transfer portal kids, and they got to do it again. They got to piecemeal it again. They have to hope to keep the class obviously as much intact as they can. But, I mean, they're going to have to, Ira, really make a run at some linebackers. I'd make a run at a quarterback in addition to Duffy. I'd certainly go after another receiver. I mean, that when you throw numbers, you've got a chance that a few of those guys really turn out to be good players. They obviously didn't hit on all of those transfer portal guys, but really the best-looking players on this team are guys that came from other programs right now. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Going back to Jordan Travis, did you think that do you think it was by design to kind of go back to it almost felt like a 2020 approach with him in the sense that earlier this year they had him throwing the ball downfield more, which didn't go real well, and it seemed like he was tentative. It seemed like he wasn't willing to run, and then all of a sudden in this game, I mean, coming into this game, I think he had 32 yards rushing in the first 3 games he played in. And in this game, he carries it 19 times for 100-something yards, including those 2 late runs. But, I mean, it seemed like the quick passing game and Jordan running was back on the table again. And is that this is what we need to beat Syracuse? Or is that hey, I know what we wanted to do this season, but let's just do whatever we can do to try to move the football and try to get a couple wins here if we can?
Yeah, and they set up all that stuff off of it, so that they are able to kind of hit that inside zone afterwards a bunch after they get you going sideline to sideline, right. And then they start wearing you down. It was great to have Maurice Smith back in this game in the middle there because that makes a huge difference for them. They're able to actually run up the gut when they do that. And Jordan missed a touchdown pass on a skinny post, Ira. He's got the whole field to hit there, and he just doesn't hit it. It's a schemed one-on-one. It's a beautiful play call. So I hear people saying, well, you got to get these. Well, man, he just missed him by 20 yards. I mean, just got to get some air under that. Man.
Yeah,
it's crazy. He could have walked it. I mean, it's nuts. But to your point about him running around, that is the healthiest he's looked. He didn't even look healthy against Notre Dame. I don't know this. It might be the first time this season that he's healthy.
I don't know though. I don't understand how you can go from being in a brace on Wednesday and being in a bulky brace last week to where you can't. I mean, he looked like he couldn't even walk around in warm-ups last week. And he was still in a brace on Wednesday. To then 3 days later, you're running like you. I mean, it's just a weird. I give him credit. For
this is the problem they have every week, though. This is the problem they have every week, Ira. I mean, they don't. It's hard to put together a game plan when you don't know which quarterback is going to be available during the week at practice. I mean, I know we're not allowed to give away secrets and everything, but practice notes from all around, everybody knows that those guys have been missing time. They take turns missing time. And that's nobody's a Jake. I mean, they're trying, but when you're hurt, you're hurt. So that's why we at the beginning of the year kept saying that bottom line is this team is going to have to have both those quarterbacks available because I don't know from week to week if everybody's going to be healthy. It was great. It was great to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see how Jordan comes out of this game, to be honest.
No, and what I thought was great was he announced his intentions early on the sideline play when he lowered his shoulder, and it was a whole lot of FU in that moment.
I'm not sure it was the smartest decision in the world. I don't know if that yard was that important in that situation, but you're right, man. He was not having it. That was interesting.
Well, it was great. It was great.
It's got to help the other players to see him do that.
Did you see? I mean, you could see the players. They were excited. I did an Irish Schoffel sideline watch after that, and at least 9 guys came up to him afterwards to pat him on the head. And by the way, Ed, you're right. Kerr Thomas is a leader out there, man. He just is. I love what he has to say whenever we interview him. After the games, he's great. On the field, he's great. He'll call out his teammates for bullshit. Like he's not having it. I love that guy a lot. I'm glad somebody, Ed, good job, buddy. Yeah, man, he's tough. But when I guess the bottom line is this game fully illustrates how difficult it is when you're down in a hole, when you're down in a rut, how difficult it is for you to win a game. They've got this game won, and a couple different times. And I dare say, I actually think they're on the cusp of running away and hiding in this game.
Oh, 100%.
And then you get the fumbled punt. And when the fumbled punt happens, the wind comes out of you because that's what bad teams do. That's what all bad teams do when they have a chance to win. What's the one thing you can't do in that situation? You can't drop that. It cannot happen. And he also dropped. He's the one who dropped on the lateral
that turned into the touchdown.
Yeah. Thinking in that moment, well, I wouldn't put him back out there. Clearly, this moment's too big for him right now. I mean, it's crazy.
I want to give a shout out to my man Joe Squarini over there. I met Joe and his son Nico down at Mike Norvell's camp down in South Florida, the youth clinics they did, and a real nice guy. And Nico's a cool kid. So shout out to Joe and Nico. Yeah, and I don't even know what that is. I mean, on the pass that Pokey dropped that turns into the touchdown. I mean, I guess he's turning upfield. He thinks he's going to get hit. I mean, their DBs knew what was coming on those screens. I mean, the guy that was coming for him was coming. He wasn't up on him yet, so he shouldn't have been that worried. But I think they know it's coming, and so I think he turned his head too fast on the punt. It just makes no sense. I mean, that goes back to the situational awareness stuff. And I know we're not going to dwell on all the mistakes. They did win the football game, but those are the things like that, the things you talked about defensively. It's just there's just a lack of awareness in certain situations that that you see on bad football teams, and you like to think it'll get better, but I do think it's positive, and I wrote about it, and I'm sure some people rolled their eyes, but I do think the toughness is important. And I did want to talk about it because Jordan, I started to think last weekend that Jordan may be shutting it down for a while. I mean, the way he was walking with that knee brace at the last game, I didn't think he was going to be available for a couple of weeks. The fact that he gutted out that practice on Wednesday and, was able to play in this game and played the way he did and was as physical as the way you said, I think was important. Maurice Smith coming in that game, a lot of times if a guy has a game time decision, he hasn't played in 3 games. If they can't start, if they're not ready to play right off the bat, now that may have been by design. Maybe they want to get Bavion going and then ease Maurice into it. But for him to come in and then play the entire game, and there were some physical plays there, and they were in some sneaks and things that inside where he was the focal point. He's apparently dealing with a back injury, so that was big. Some of these offensive linemen, man, at practice, I'm telling you, dude, during the week, a couple of them can barely walk. It looks like. I mean, they are struggling, and for those guys to play every snap these last 2 games. I think it says a lot, and to what you said at the beginning, it does speak to the determination to try to at least help this team win if they can.
Yeah. So to me, competing things can be true, right? You can be disgusted while recognizing the level we're at right now as a Nole. If you're a Florida State fan, you look out there and you're like, man, this is hard to watch. Like we really can't line up and beat people in one-on-ones. We have no depth. We don't have much in the way of, obviously, there is no drop-back passing game. It doesn't exist and all of that. And at the same time, if you want overwhelming evidence that there's a culture change, well, then just look at how often guys choose to play, especially on an 0-4 team, while hurt. Like showing up, gutting it out, wearing those braces, doing whatever they have to, getting whatever treatment they have to have. I mean, I don't know if in college we see a lot of Toradol shots or not. I know that's what goes on every week in the NFL, but certainly it's probably likely some of these guys are on some painkillers to be able to go out there, and they do that. And a lot of programs, and you know this, Ira, and we've covered teams that have done this here. When things go south early and you're not the team you thought you were going to be, and there's not a lot on the table to accomplish, if they don't love that staff, if they don't love their situation, they'll shut it down. They'll shut it down. They could have like a little tweak to the elbow. Oh, we're going to have to sit this one out. Those guys will shut it down. And you're not seeing that. You're seeing a lot of guys doing their best to be on the field no matter the situation. And that is a sign to me of a cultural shift, that a locker room that's better. We want them to be better players, but they're not going to be overnight.
100%. And that's like, if you think back to this whole season, honestly, it's really been there almost the whole time. There hasn't been a lot of moments where you felt like, okay, those guys are dogging it. There's been a couple plays here or there where people will point out a guy trailing a play. I think that happens. I think that does happen more than you think in sports, but certainly in college football. And it's not to excuse it, but it does happen. But in terms of, you think of the Notre Dame game, the effort in that game, you think of the Jacksonville State game, they didn't play well, but it wasn't like I didn't think the players stunk it up. I felt like that was more a little bit on the coaches and then just some mixed execution once they got out of a rhythm. The Wake Forest game and then the first half of the Louisville games were really the only two times where you're like, man, what is going on here? What are they doing? But then they played so well in the second half of the Louisville game. And then you look at the way they played in this game. So from an effort standpoint, you're getting that. And I know that sounds like bare minimum, but if you don't have that, there's nothing to build upon. That has to be the foundation. And then when you get better players and better execution and better, the coaches understand better what they have, then you can take the next step. But you can't get there without that baseline.
Yeah, and so another indicator, you're right, you can't. And you can't build on anything. You can't build culture and trust.
And it's not a given. Like people say that should be a given. Well, it's not a given. We haven't seen it here in a while.
No, we haven't. It's been a toxic place. So it's good to see that. The other thing I would point out, there are guys that are playing hurt, all of them, and it really shows in their performance. I know we have Devontae Love-Taylor for Trench Talk, and he does a great job with that, and he's a good kid. And last year he was a good player, but he is not anywhere near what he was before that injury. And I don't think he's ever really been able to properly get back. When you watch him play, he's not very good right now. And it's because he's not, I don't think, fully healthy, but he's giving it a go. He's out there busting his ass trying to play. Maurice Smith is clearly not 100%. You see a lot of these guys, right? Robert is struggling too, man. And
Dylan Gibbons. I didn't think Dylan Gibbons was going to be able to play last week based on some things we saw in practice. And to your point about Devontae Love-Taylor, it's funny, and Aslan and I were talking about it because, Aslan hosts the Trench Talk, and when he was talking last week to Devontae, he brought up the fact that, man, you got to give Robert Scott a lot of credit. What does that do for his teammates when a guy's out there clearly in pain, not 100%, but he's out there playing? And Devontae's like, yeah, that's awesome. We all have some things we're going on. And I'm telling you, man, there are days, and Devontae's one of those guys I'm talking about that, man, it's a struggle sometimes for those guys to get through practice. Now, you'd love to get to a point where you have offensive linemen who are perfectly healthy. But to your point, I don't think he because he had a season-ending injury and then the way the rehab process works in the offseason, I don't think he ever got back to where he needed to be when the season started. And then, boom, here you are, Notre Dame. And, he's had some setbacks. But, man, he's out there every snap.
Out there every snap. A lot of guys fighting. The theme will remain the same the rest of the year. You're going to watch them each week and see if they're still willing to put their head in there, willing to continue to fight for a team that's not going anywhere, willing to see this thing through the season and hope to gain some traction, as I keep talking about. I think some guys have. I think there are going to be matchups that are on this schedule where, because you don't have enough talent, you really probably can't do much of anything. I know we're going to hear, well, why do they call that, or why do they call this? It's really, to me, this isn't about offensive play calling at all. It's about the lack of personnel and the ability to really block it up. Your options are so limited. So what you can do instead is just watch, the fight and the togetherness and all that each week. They're good enough in some cases to get another win or two, certainly over UMass. And I think you predicted in your 3-2-1, I'll reference it again. Didn't you say you think they're going to beat somebody that they shouldn't? I tend to agree with that. They're going to play somebody who's not going to want to be there and doesn't feel like playing. And Florida State, because they do care to play and do fight, they'll find a way to win the game.
And as they continue cleaning up these mistakes, these last couple of games, they've started to clean up some of the mistakes. This past game was really, about as clean as Florida State can play right now. The one turnover was on the interception that one guy misses a block, but it wasn't a terrible decision by the quarterback or a bad throw. Running backs didn't fumble the ball at all. You only had 3 penalties as a team.
Yeah.
You didn't. I mean, it was just offensively pretty clean game, pretty efficient game, not explosive, but you didn't kill yourself, and that's what we talked about. I think in the Warchant report, we were like, if they just don't kill themselves offensively, they've got a chance to win this game.
They tried with that fumbled punt, and they tried when Cam McDonald didn't bother to get a block. And
thankfully they had a lead at that.
Yeah.
But that was big. They had a lead, so they were able to withstand some of those runs. If you're tied or if you're trailing and those things happen, now you're in deep trouble.
But they were good. They were good, Ira, by the way, in the red zone.
In situational, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were good in the red zone. They haven't been good in the red zone all year.
Pretty good on 3rd and 4th down.
Yeah. I mean,
really
I was stunned. So that's important. I think that's an area that couldn't have gotten worse. So it's impressive to see that they're handcuffed a little bit about what they can do in the red zone, and yet they were good there. So I'll take that. There's still things from week to week that we're all going to be mad about. There are some head scratchers out there occasionally. Tom and I were texting. Tom Lang and I were texting during the game. There was the moment on that 3rd down play, and it's 3rd and a mile, so I don't know what the magic play call could have been, but I know it's not to sprint my right-handed quarterback out dead left,
right.
And have him have to stop and maybe try to throw against his body. My guess was they wanted him just to run that. They were playing to punt. But it is a strange moment. But it's not about individual play calls like that. It's about what you can't be in 3rd and forever because this team can't overcome that. They don't have a passer to do it. They certainly don't have receivers to do it.
I was going to say, they don't have a passer to do it. They don't have an offensive line to block it up, and they don't have receivers to make the plays. I did one big positive that kind of gets lost because it was early in the game, but Keyshawn Helton getting that touchdown was big for him, and that was a tough catch. It was a really,
no touch on that throw.
No. Jordan's going to fire it in there.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Yeah.
But he, Keyshawn's journey this season, he coming off of a year last year where he wasn't very productive coming off the injury. And then in preseason camp, he really was good, man. And you were out there. He was really good in preseason camp. I thought he was maybe the best player on the offense, definitely the best receiver. He drops the pass early in the season and just the Jacksonville State game. And then just kind of, I don't know, man, just kind of went into a shell, I thought, for the next couple of weeks. And last week of practice, you saw it. I mean, he had a day of practice last week. I think it was Wednesday, where he was unreal. I mean, he made 3 or 4 just spectacular catches, really competed. And it was like, okay, this is a guy from preseason again. I wonder if it could carry over. So then when it did and he got a touchdown, that was big, man. That was really good for him because, they don't have – I mean, they just don't have a lot of weapons outside. And if he can play like that, at least that's a guy that can be a little bit consistent. Pokey has the ability to do some of that, but he just can't have the inconsistencies we saw in this game and we've kind of seen throughout his career.
So I will take a moment, this one little pocket of the show here, to be a little bit negative, and it's not about players. Man, have we reached 2 fingers to my eyes, 2 fingers back to you, Papuchis?
Not a good day for the special teams. Not a
hey,
good
buddy.
Day.
I mean, that's not a good look. For all the days that they practice special team for what I think is a little bit too long, I mean, come on now. That they are awful on special teams. It is hard to watch. Are they telling guys to tiptoe out of the end zone? Is this sort of like just kind of take your time here? Let's just shimmy on up to the 10 and get hit?
I don't know what it is. I mean, that's particularly Ja'Kai Douglas, but they've been, they tried him last year and he did that. And I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what's part. It's like, I would like to know some of the decisions that go into, who they decide to put back there in different situations because they've tried a bunch of different guys. I mean, we've seen Corbin back there. We've seen Corey Wren back there. We've seen, Travis Ray. And then this game, obviously, Ja'Kai Douglas. I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make, but I also don't know, they've tried 3 different punt returners now because Travis Jay either isn't healthy or he's worn out. So they go to Keyshawn Helton. This game, they went to Pokey, who dropped the punt. I don't know, man. I don't get it. I mean, as you said, they put a lot of time on it. Mike Norvell, basically the two positions that Mike Norvell kind of really focuses on. I mean, he's kind of like Jimbo in the sense that not necessarily. No, he gets around to all the positions. Jimbo is much
Right.
more about the quarterbacks and the offense. But Norvell gets around to all the different parts of the field, but he really focuses on wide receivers because that's what he played, and special teams because it's so important to him. So it's not like Papuchis is teaching something he doesn't want.
Right.
It's just bizarre. It's bizarre. There, and then they gave up some long
Well, they
returns
gave up,
about the
oh,
40.
dude,
Yeah,
nothing about it. Nothing about it
yeah.
was
There's
any
nothing
good.
good. And even
that,
and
yeah.
I'm also not sure. And Corey brought this up during the game. The rugby punts are good, but Mastromano can also lay into one. I mean, he can
Yeah, go
also,
ahead and do that. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
seems like you don't see a whole lot of that. But
Well, I just know 25-yard line is good starting field position. So if you want to
yeah,
just go ahead and take your fair catch and take it to the 25, that probably seems like a good idea. Because first and 10 from the 14, the 16, all that nonsense
with this
because you're having
offense,
no, dude, it's death. It's death. And then you're immediately having the field flipped on you. So it's and we saw when you drop a so that fumble, somebody might say, well, they didn't score, they got the fourth down stop there. No, man, it totally changed the game.
right.
You're going to go. Syracuse is tired. Their
You're
defense
up.
is worn out. The defense has stretched it, and you've been able to build a lead. You're going to go down and score in all likelihood, and that's your ball game.
Right.
But then not only do you fumble that, they pin you at your one when they don't get in, and so then when they got the ball back, they were primed to be able to score.
From
You know,
from a big picture standpoint, though, Jeff, maybe it's good for them to go through that in terms of responding because they did. Syracuse made Syracuse. It would get to 10. Syracuse would score.
right.
Then Florida State would go back and score. Syracuse would score. Florida State would go back and score. Even then Syracuse scored and tied it. At that point, you're thinking, okay, do they have another response in them? And they did. Not only they didn't score the first time they got the ball, but then they did get a stop on defense and then went down
Yeah.
and scored. And
By the way, how
so
shocked were you to get that stop on defense? This
completely.
script was in the books, buddy. It was over. We were going to lose another heartbreaking game. I think everybody in that stadium thought so. I mean, for them to get that stop was huge.
And I think on the second down, I need to go back and look at it. There's a lot going on at that point. I was trying to write my game story. The last, it's one of the things we do is we try to have a game story ready for the website as soon as the game's over. So I'm kind of paying attention, but also kind of writing, and I'm watching the results of plays. And they stopped Schrader on one of his runs on that last drive, which was big.
Because he avoided the rush. They brought pressure off the left side. I believe that was Kevin Noles. They brought in off the left side. He juked him, and it looked like he was going to easily be able to run for a first down.
He only got like a yard, I think.
Yeah, he ended up getting caught from behind. I don't know, was that Cooper or Thomas? I can't remember, but either one. It was a great play. By the way, Coop, man, good God, has he played well, man. I love watching that kid play. He plays with a lot of energy to be that size. He's tough, makes plays. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I mean, that defensive line, I mean, that's the –
it was Cooper. Yeah, okay, good. Thanks, Tom.
I asked Papuchis last week, I think it's impressive that with the way the back end of the defense is played for most of this year and the way the offense is played at times this year, that defensive line, to me, that's usually where you see guys really gamble and freelance and that front seven is usually where you see guys who are going to start getting out of their gaps, start, just trying to do whatever they can do to make a play because they don't trust anything else around them. That group, partly because I'm sure it's a lot of experienced guys, and Keir Thomas, Jermaine Johnson, Robert Cooper's played a ton of football. You've got guys they're giving the defense a chance because they're playing so well and pretty disciplined that it kind of gives everybody else a chance to grow. If they started freelancing up front, man, it would be out the gate every other play.
Yeah, no, they've been the most consistent group on this team by a mile. And I really wish that we could clean these things up on the other end, on the back end, because they'd have a chance to actually dominate some games. I mean, they totally dominated the second half of the Louisville game, gave up whatever they gave up, 70 yards or something. And this game starts just the way they wanted it to. I mean, they get out to a 9-0 lead, stop missing extra points, but they get out to a 9-0 lead, and they're dominating on defense. Syracuse is not able to run the ball. Tucker for the most part, had a maddeningly tough day, I would think, for him. The only reason he got to over 100 yards was because the extra possessions late when Florida State's tired, but he wouldn't have got there, and he's been good against everybody. So I think, by and large, that group up front is something you can trust most weeks. It's just a shame you can't trust really anybody else on that defense right now. It's just that front four. That's all you really got.
So this week, man, the other thing I want to bring up was, like last week was the worst possible. It's funny how like everything that could have gone wrong for Mike Norvell and his coaching staff last week happened. You lose the game, you're down 31-7 to Louisville at home. You lose that game, and then on top of that, a bunch of former players have good weeks at their other schools. Jeff Sims comes off the bench and leads Georgia Tech to a win. He's the guy that people.
How did he do this week?
Not as good. It's weird, man. Like he threw for a ton of yards.
Oh, they were getting their ass beat
but
by
he had 2
40
picks early, and I think one of them was either return for a touchdown or set up a touchdown. But and then you got Florida losing. You got Miami losing on Thursday night. Man,
what a good weekend! What a weekend!
Jimbo loses.
Dude, Clemson should have lost.
Almost loses again.
Yeah.
So it was a good week for Florida State. That's I think that played into Corey pouring champagne over his head last night.
Yeah, well, and by the way, as an aside, as we take the overview for the season, I'll tell you what, that Georgia defense, it is. So what's tough too, I think, for all Florida State fans, and we've brought this up, I think, on this show. I know I brought it up on mine during the week. It's an easy observation to make because if you're passionate about football, you watch everybody. You watch as many games as you can. You zero in on your team. Obviously, that's a central theme. It's what we do on Warchant.com. It's what I do on the Jeff Cameron Show. But I love college football across the board, and I love to get a good sample size of games every weekend. And even games that I miss, I go back and watch. And it's just so resoundingly true that when you watch the better teams in the country, it's pretty wide open this year. But when you watch the better teams,
after the top two, it's pretty wide open.
Yeah, after the top two. But when you watch them, you're like, I mean, how bad would Florida State lose to Georgia?
Oh my!
I mean,
come on, man.
First, think about Florida State's offense and that offensive line trying to block Georgia. I mean, that's a name your score. It's a name your score.
There would be injuries. I mean, it wouldn't just be a defeat. It would be injuries. But I mean, I get that, and that's frustrating. But it's
tough.
Let's
focus. No, but I'm saying, I'm saying that is an example not to get mad about. That's just you can't change that right now. It's going to take time. You got to get better players, but it should serve as a reminder just how far Florida State has to go. I mean, they're playing different brands of football out there. It's not the same game. And so
100%.
It's troubling.
And I thought this, you look at even in the conference, like Wake Forest, there was a story last week I was reading, and we knew this, but Andrew Carter, who used to work down here, and you remember him.
I know Andrew.
He did a story about Wake Forest this week, and I think they have 9 super seniors that I think they all start, and they have like a couple 7th-year guys. I mean, it's like BYU back in the day where they're rolling out a bunch of 24-year-olds, and so Florida State. That roster turnover that's happened between Jimbo leaving, then Willie coming and leaving, and then Norvell coming in, they've had that roster turnover. And so you've lost so many guys that should be older guys now. I looked the other day, I think of the guys from the classes from, I guess, the 18 and 19 classes or 17 and 18 classes, guys that should be 4th and 5th year seniors right now. Now, obviously, you're not going to keep all your 4th and 5th year guys, but you keep a good bit of them. There's only 10 from those 2 classes that are even on this team anymore, and most of them don't even play or don't start. So you really don't get anything out of that group. The only veterans you have on this team, most of the veterans you have on this team are transfers who've only been in the program for a year. And some of those, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. So, I mean, it's just, Florida State didn't get in this situation from a roster standpoint overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight. And I get that it's frustrating, but I don't know that getting mad about it every week makes sense. Some of the people that, like I mentioned the video Corey and I did after the game, were kind of like having fun with the win and, playing with champagne. It's ludicrous, but it's kind of ludicrous where Florida State is right now. I mean, this is Florida State football, and they can't, as you just said, they're so far away from those teams that you can't even see them. Like if they were,
well, Ira, if you
different story.
watch, okay, so to your point, if you just look player for player on Saturday, Florida State's not appreciably better anywhere than Syracuse. Ira. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not appreciably better than anybody they've faced up to this.
There's our guy.
I'm looking up there the picture. That's good. Yeah, they're not. They're just not appreciably better than most of the teams they're playing against. So that's the reality, and it's hard to confront that. But
so imagine. I mean, again, I'm not making excuses for this coaching staff. They've made some mistakes. I think we've talked about it. Norvell's admitted it. But man, it's got to be tough. It's got to be tough. Game planning with the situations that they're kind of dealing with, and not being able to come out and role players and role positions or role the former staff. I mean, I think he's trying to do the right thing. Like they don't come out and say, "Man, we got nobody that can play."
Yeah, it's a toughie. They Dillingham a couple of weeks ago said some things that all but screamed,
right.
Guys, I mean, he all but did that. I will say, Bob here as a complaint, and I think this is something that's worth talking about. Like you can be critical of what's going on with the secondary because I think they have some players there. Some things there got to get fixed. I'm very concerned with what's going on there, and I've mentioned the linebackers too. I mean, this is going to be an interesting rest of the way, Ira, because there are some guys on this staff that I think, my guess is, I don't know this, but my guess is there are a couple of guys on this staff whose jobs are in jeopardy, who would be candidates to be told to have a good day. Things don't get better.
We can we can explain a lot of the deficiencies on this team. I think that's a good point. Secondary is one where they have talent. They have guys that have size, speed, and athletic ability. Now, are they good football players? Some of them we haven't seen it, but there's talent there to work with. A lot of those guys that they brought in their transfers started at their prior schools, so you think they can play. I think that's fair. And at the end of the year, if they're 2-10, or even if they're 3-9, it's going to be hard for Mike Norvell to say to the fan base, to the boosters, to the administration, yeah, we're running it back with everybody. We're not making any changes. I think that's certainly on the table for what he's going to do. Hey, let me ask you. I wanted to ask you again, man. I like making fun of other coaches and other teams. How excited do you think Jimbo was about losing to Mike Leach in that offense?
Oh my God!
Could you imagine at home?
Well, and they don't have a passing game at Texas A&M, and I understand they lost their starting quarterback, but those two were competing in camp for the right up to the end.
Right. Yeah.
So in camp, that was pretty even matchup. So I watched, the back end of that, and it's funny too because A&M was the game that a lot of people circled that Alabama was going to have a hard time with. They're like, oh, Alabama on the road. Jimbo's, got a good offensive line, a very good defensive line this year. That's a tough place to play, and Alabama's going to name their score in that game. That's not even going to be remotely close.
It's weird. It's really weird. I mean, it speaks to, and I know, that offensive line they had last year, really the last couple of years was dominant, and they lost a lot of those guys, and the same thing in Notre Dame, man. Fans and media, we spend so much time talking about the coaches and how successful they are, but a lot of times the best teams have the best offensive lines and defensive lines, and when you have a bunch of seniors and they all leave, you're going to see a drop off. And Notre Dame hasn't been the same, and Texas A&M's not the same.
I talked about Cincinnati going into Notre Dame, and one of the things that I thought would happen is that Notre Dame would, from the first quarter on, would have to be a one-dimensional team because their offensive line has not been good at all,
right.
And Cincinnati is very good at stopping the run. So almost from the jump, this was going to be a game where Jack Cohn was going to have to try to win a football game. Well, good luck, man. I mean, I know he played great against us, but he hasn't been great since. and that's a big win for Cincinnati. I think one of the ugly truths about college football that we were hoping would be different this year, although it's starting to settle in a bit more now to being kind of the way it was. We wanted 5 to 8 teams to have a chance to win a national championship. And when Ohio State lost early to Oregon, you're like, okay, that's a good sign. When Florida nearly beat Alabama, you thought, okay, Alabama is gettable. Even Georgia, which we knew would be dominant on defense, scored a grand total of 3 offensive points against Clemson's defense. So you're like, well, they're going to have problems on offense, And now I think we know it's Georgia and Alabama and 2 other teams that are waiting to get their ass beat in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, and you sit there and you're like, man, so Cincinnati, good luck. If you get in, like everybody's like, oh, Cincinnati might get in now, and okay,
yeah,
what are they going to do with Georgia?
No, not much.
Alabama?
No, not much.
And so the idea of going to 8 teams or 12 teams or 16 teams, like I'm all for it to an extent, but the way college football is going right now, it seems less teams are capable of making a run than and you don't. I know we love what college basketball is, but it doesn't work in football. You're not going to have Cinderellas. You might see one team win a game that's an upset, but you're not going to see a team make a run knocking off 2 or 3 great teams in a row if they're not that kind of team.
I have to tell you, I really like watching Georgia play. And for people that don't know, I'm indifferent about Georgia. I've never cared for or against them.
Wake Forest is the number 4. Oof. Sorry.
Oh, can you imagine Wake trying to play Georgia or Alabama? But hey, by the way, Clawson's an awesome coach, and Wake is a cool story. But I mean, no. But watching Georgia play, man, that is some throwback, beautiful. Just get you some straight up. There is no fancy whatsoever. It's just my guy's going to whoop your guy's ass, and we're going to run right at you. It is glorious.
I wonder what the issue I have with Kirby is. They're gonna go up against somebody that's got a quarterback that can make some plays and score some points, and that's the thing that Kirby's so conservative offensively. I just think that's going to be, I'm curious to see if he can win a game like that. Somebody is going to score some points against them. I know it doesn't look like it.
Not a lot.
But, man, if you've got a great quarterback. And I don't know how many great quarterbacks are.
I was going to say, name the great quarterbacks we're looking at right now.
I'll be surprised if they go an entire season looking like this defensively. And I just think Kirby, all the Georgia fans hated James Coley because he was too conservative. Well, now they hate the new guy. Well, that all goes back to Kirby. That's how Kirby wants to coach. He's still in that mindset of winning with defense in the running game, which is fine. But at some point, you're going to have to score some points, and that to me is my concern with them. That's why I wouldn't say, and Corey's starting to feel himself. He's starting to think this could be the year for Georgia. I'm just not sure just because that part of it, Saban got over that. I don't know if Kirby is. I
do think they have weapons. They're not all healthy right now. And JT Daniels didn't play in this game. So their starting quarterback didn't play. They weren't going to let, Bennett throw it around a lot. And once they realized Arkansas could not win the line of scrimmage, why would they? And they've got 3 all-world backs. The vast majority of the teams on their schedule, they can line up and run the ball against those 5 offensive linemen. It's the envy of every Florida State fan. I mean, we have had this just horrible predicament of not having functional offensive lines. And when you watch a team that has it, everything else is possible. Everything. You can run anything you want. And it's just so frustrating because we're not even close. I mean, it's not even close. You just have to hope that the guys that they have on the line for this recruiting class are all locked in.
I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day about Florida State's roster. Somebody in the program, not a coach, but somebody in the program. And, you just start looking at, okay, well, like even last year, I mean, Landon Dickerson should have been at Florida State. Brock Rubel, if he was an idiot, if he could have been there. They had some guys in the system that could have been good offensive linemen that left the program for different reasons. Trey McKitty leaves to go Georgia. You look at, but if you look at over the last 5 or 6 years where everything's gone to heck, it's offensive line and quarterback. I mean, everything else, you can complain about the linebackers, you complain about the secondary, complain about, but the bottom line is if you're not good up front and if you don't have a quarterback, I mean, good luck.
Yeah,
and they haven't been good at either spot since Jameis left.
Well, I'm going to give you a prime example of that. Is go back to the start of the year. If you did all the preseason scouting you could do on all that stuff, you read where Clemson people were really concerned about their offensive line. They were going to have to slot a freshman inside and move some guys around, and then right off the bat they struggled. But you thought, okay, well, it's Georgia. I mean, nobody's moving the ball against Georgia. Right. They haven't moved it against anybody, and their offensive line loses every week, and all of a sudden you don't have an all-world quarterback back there, or even one that is all that confident right now, because they can't win battles in the run game, so they're in second and long, third and long a lot, and all of a sudden he looks really average. It's to your point, just that not having a good group up front changes everything about who you are, and then also the way that you have to call the game. That's why Florida State, our fans will get so angry every Saturday because they see this little league offense and they look at what we're calling and they go, well, this is ridiculous. But they have to try to trick everybody. They have to try to trick everybody because they can't just line up and run plays. They can't.
Yeah, they broke out the diamond the other day. And then, they're doing everything they can. They're doing everything they can to make the other team get as many of their defenders away from the box as possible, to just give those 5 guys a chance to only block 5 guys as opposed to blocking 7 or 8 guys. And then, if you get the running back out there, now he's got a chance. Maybe your receivers and tight ends can block somebody because you're going to have a hard time. You're just going to have a hard time blocking it up front. So, but I get the frustration. It sucks. I mean, nobody wants to watch this.
Sure, it's hard to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I get the frustration. But I don't think it's just a matter of, the coaching staff being dumb and not knowing that the running backs are talented and, hey, why don't we give them the ball? They're trying to figure out ways to get them the ball when they can.
You want proof of that, look at targets. Just look at targets total, touches if you want.
Right.
I mean, over 40 plays went to those guys. What did they run, 70 plays? What did Florida State run? I'm talking about in the pass game and running. If you just look at touches. Yeah. I mean, it all adds up to a lot of touches because they know those 2 players on offense are their best 2 players. But you can't just, a lot of times I'll hear fans say, well, you got to give them each the ball 25 times. Well, you really can't, because once you've sold that, then teams are just going to take that away. So you're trying to make them play you honest. So you spread them out, like you said, make them go sideline to sideline, then hit them up the gut. You're trying to set it up so that you have an opportunity to win. You can't just line up and say, here we go. It's 1936. We're just going to power straight ahead. I mean, it's not going to work. So they are trying to be imaginative in the amount of ways that they get them the ball.
Can Tom, can you show us that question again? What was it? So is Rodney Harrison making somebody else hold an umbrella for him? That would be Corey. That would be Corey asking, what were Corey or Jeff? The talent. The Corey and Jeff, I think, are the talent. They see themselves as a talent, and somebody else would be holding the umbrella for them. I think me and Aslan would be holding the umbrellas. Me, Aslan, and Tom Austin would be holding the umbrellas.
Austin's low man on the totem pole just because he's the youngest. So just do the right thing and say Austin would be holding the umbrella for everybody.
I do appreciate how Corey has transitioned from a writer to now he's talent. So he's because Aslan has to take care of him.
You guys, how late did you end up staying doing the post game last night? How long did that champagne party go on for?
we had to call for extras. No, it was pretty quick, but it was it's funny, man. It's like Aslan brought the bottle, and Corey. The idea was Corey was going to pop it.
Sure.
Once we went live, but Corey's he was trying to get it ready, and it popped before we even got it open. So anyway,
he's got to learn not to pour it directly into his eyes. I'm kind of confused. He's pouring it directly into his eyes. What are you doing?
That's so funny. But the funniest thing about it all, though, man, is my I was I was reading the YouTube comments, and like most people are like, "This is funny," blah blah blah. But the people who are like mad every week about this team and are mad every week about, and I'm sure mad right now as they listen to this,
Mm-hmm.
they're so mad that like, how could you guys celebrate that win? Like we were really celebrating like it was a big win. I mean, it's just it's
Yeah,
like,
like you were taking that very, very seriously.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, and
Yeah, no, it's the tongue in cheek. It's the
yeah,
it's the Bronx cheer.
like
It's what that is.
Levitard, you don't get the show. But
Yeah,
anyway,
you don't get, yeah. No,
it was
and by the way, that's a hey, listen, I was celebrating with champagne with Tom and Gene after the game. I jumped on the post game just
that's
to
right.
have one because man,
Hey,
it
when you go
feels
over
good to win a
September,
game.
right?
It feels good to win a game.
That was a good Saturday. It was a good weekend for Florida State because you finally got a win. And again, man, like most of the people and teams you don't like ended up losing.
Well, I'm about to go watch the Bucks as we wrap this up now. And
what's gonna happen in that game, Jeff?
well, nobody's healthy. JPP is out. Gronk is out. I don't know who else. I think we got somebody else out. I'm like, good Christ, everybody. No, I think the Bucks will win, but I'm growing more concerned about these injuries. So we'll see. I've rather enjoyed the advantage of having Pro Bowlers at every position. I don't know how to react when we start to lose them and we don't have so many toys to play with.
How can we be expected to win the game without a Hall of Fame tight end?
What are we doing? We're missing this guy and that guy. I mean, these guys, yeah. So I'm gonna watch that and cross my fingers that it's a buck and Knoll kind of weekend where both my teams get the wins and I'll be excited going in tomorrow for the show. But yeah, cool. So I think it'd be nice. You going on the road? Are you gonna leave? You going to North Carolina?
Corey's going to North Carolina. Yeah, we
split it.
We talked about sending both of us, but North Carolina actually, because of COVID, is only allowing 5 visiting media at all. Like 5 total visiting media from the entire media corps. So basically, we just had to send one person. So Corey's going to go, and he'll hold it down for us. That's a trip we don't get to make a lot because they don't play them very often. So it would have been nice, but maybe I've been up there before, so Corey's going to hold it down.
Yeah, well, we'll get together and watch it over some cold beers. We'll just watch it from afar. Sounds good. For Tom Lang and Ira Schoffel, I'm Jeff Cameron. Thanks to all of you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Sunday Smash. We do it every Sunday. And this one was fun because at least we got to talk about a win. I know there's a lot of problems and we couldn't totally ignore them, but we got to do this one with a smile. Cheers, everybody. Appreciate you. You all have a great rest of your Sunday night. I'll talk to you tomorrow on the Jeff Cameron Show and on Wake Up Warchant bright and early. So plenty of stuff still coming your way. Be good, everybody.